So here's a couple projects that I did this past week. Well, I was just burning some time. Oh, and I got a new saw. Anyway, and I wanted to use it. I found these butterflies on Graphics Fairy, and I cut them out with my Cricut, and then realized it wasn't calibrated, so I had to cut them out mostly by hand. Anyway, I had these old picture frames that were in my shed for a while. I've had them for like 20 odd years. They used to be on my wall holding, I don't even remember what kind of pictures. And then when I moved, I took them down, and yeah, they've been just around. I was going to yard sale them. I thought, you know what? I'll just make something out of them real quick. Give me an excuse to use my new saw. And I had an idea rolling around in my head, so I decided to get to it. I took them apart, took the little staves that hold the back piece in normally out, and I cut some pieces of wood that are just a little bit bigger than the opening of the actual picture frame. I goofed. I should have made them a little bit bigger than I did, but I found a fix for it, so it's not that big of a deal. And I also smushed up one of my fingers getting the stupid stays out of the picture frame, but I lived. I just felt like I wasn't going to. Anyway, but like I said, I took the little thin craft sticks. They're shaped like a popsicle stick, but they're a lot longer, like coffee stirrers. Hello. Anyway, but yeah, they're like long wooden coffee stirrer type sticks. I took some of those and I glued them around the edges to create the box part of the shadow box. And loaded them up pretty good with glue. This isn't like, I mean, this was just something that like I had these things laying around and I decided to put something together out of them. I could have done it a lot more, professionally or, more refined, but I really like the way these turned out. So, yeah, it was worth it. Anyway, but yeah, so I glued those around. I used my miter shears to cut the sticks versus using the saw. I mean, I probably could have like stacked them all up together and knocked them out with the saw, but it's a lot easier to do little stuff like that with just the miter shears. Ross stopped in to say hi and see what I was doing. He was very upset because when I was cutting the other parts of the wood, I had to remove him from the room. I don't want him breathing in a bunch of sawdust, so I chased all the cats out of the room and turned on my shop vac and had on my mask and everything, and they they always get very upset when I do that. So yeah, but I said lots of gluing, and I didn't precisely measure anything, and I don't have a rib fence for my saw. So I just got it and I didn't know whether or not I would need it, and I don't think I do. It's like using a sewing machine because the saw has like a little foot on the front of it, a little plastic foot that looks like a sewing machine foot. And it looks just like a presser foot. Like, it's kind of cool. And it holds the wood in place pretty good, and it's just a matter of having steady hands. It's like using a sewing machine, except you're cutting something in half instead of sewing two pieces of fabric together. So I don't really have too much of a problem, but I'm just out of practice because I haven't been sewing much either lately, so it worked. But yeah, like I said, I noticed that I hadn't cut the boards quite big enough, so I did go along and just cut pieces of the stir sticks and put them hanging like halfway into the picture frame. Just glued those down. Some of the sticks were a little bit warped, so I had to like hold them there while they dried, but they dried just fine. It wasn't an issue. I could have clamped them or put heavy books on them or whatever, but I get really stubborn and impatient, so I was like, I'm gonna make this work, and I'm just gonna do this, even if I have to just sit here and hold these all down by hand, which is basically what I did until they set up enough to where I could set them aside. But it worked. I got it all together. It wasn't too big of a problem. And they turned out good, so I'm happy. The first one, I took the glass out and then glued the wood sticks that are smaller than the opening on, and then couldn't get the glass back in. So I learned my lesson the hard way, and after having to deconstruct something I had just glued down and to pull it back off and put the glass back in and then reglue it, I learned that that was a bad idea. So for the other two, I managed to have enough sense to take it off of there. So yeah, they just lined up on the back. I painted the insides white, just some craft paint, and used some double-sided mounting tape and stuck these guys in there. And there you have it. Ta-da! They're not perfect. They're not the best, but I think they look pretty cool. And these are my 3D printed rabbits. I haven't used my 3D printer in a long time, so I went and I found a file just to do a test print. And the test print that I found that I wanted to print was 2 little hares, rabbits. And I had this cloche that I got from the Dollar Tree like 2 years ago, and it's been sitting in my craft stash. And I decided that I would put it to some use, so I grabbed some packing styrofoam from a box that I got recently, and put everything, cut it up. Just used a box cutter and cut up some little pieces of styrofoam to make some rocks. I did record that, and then I don't know what I did with the footage, so I don't know if I did it in OBS and it's just sitting somewhere on a hard drive, or if my phone ate it. I'm not sure. I was having a heck of a time getting everything transferred over. It was a nightmare, but yeah. Either way, this is some Vallejo texture mud. I really love this stuff. Their environmental line is amazing, and I went ahead and put this on while the paint that I used on the bottom, the base of this, and the rabbits too, just because I was being kind of lazy, is just Mod Podge and brown paint mixed together. Yeah. Anyway, so I took some grass and I put grass on using some thick scenic glue, and I just wanted this to kind of look like a bunch of like mucked up undergrowth somewhere, I put some strips of paper towel around so that I could spray it down with a little bit of glue, and then my glue was clogged and I had to like unclog. It wasn't too bad, just a little bit at the end. It's just some watered down PVA glue and some alcohol to kind of break the surface tension and get everything to stick the way I wanted it to. And then while I purposely made it like mucked up and wet, I guess I should say, so that I could put some of these little like leaves and stuff on there, and they would kind of like sit into the glue a little bit. And there's like 4 different colors. I got these, I think I ordered them on Amazon or something. Anyway, but I used a little bit of each color and just kind of sprinkled them around on there to look like, just undergrowth, a bunch of leaves on the ground scatter and muck. And that worked. I like it. Gave it a little bit of color without being like too over the top. And just kind of, did that. And scooped up all the little extras and put them aside and tried to get them stuck on there the best I possibly could. The dome for this, unfortunately, because it had been tossed around in my craft stuff, got a little scratched up. So I used some I don't know, some kind of streaking grime or something or other. I believe it was also a Vallejo product, though. I think I used the dark slimy grime, and kind of like painted it on and wiped it off and painted it on and wiped it off a bunch of times on the dome to give it like that real like gross, like sitting somewhere on a shelf gathering dust and muck feel, which you'll see in my final shot. I don't think I recorded that portion when I was doing this. And then I got up my trees. I've had these trees hanging out forever. I had a whole bunch of them, and I've used quite a few, but I still have quite a few left. So I figured I might as well get out some and make use of them. The bigger tree that I'm putting on here, I'm off camera for a minute because I was cutting some branches off because it didn't quite fit and I wanted it to fit better. So I trimmed the trunk down a little bit, and then I just cut the branches off on the side that faces toward the hill so that it would sit a little bit better, and kind of switch things around. I kind of felt, figure out how I liked it, double check the position of my rabbits. And I should have painted them a little bit brighter, I guess, but I used a contrast paint on them, and it takes a while for it to fully cure so you can see what the color is going to turn out like. So I might go back and touch them up later, a little bit more highlighting and stuff, because the white that I painted for the tips for like their ears and their tails and stuff, and the little normal white parts of their bodies, don't really show up that well. And it's mostly because the white was kind of soaking up the underlying contrast paint that wasn't all the way cured. I did kind of pin these in place. I was going to like drill into them and do the whole thing, but these are resin prints, and it's kind of a nightmare, and they're kind of brittle, and I didn't want to break the bunnies. So it's like a really it's an affordable resin that I use. So it's really, really brittle generally. So what I did is they each had a little peg that was built into them, into the print. So I just used a piece of, a little piece of, what's that stuff? Oh, paper clips, little pieces of paper clips, and just glued the stub to the paper clip and then stuck it in the styrofoam, and then put a little bit of extra glue around it to hold it in place. And there you have it. And I also used some rub and buff around the base so that it had that kind of antique metal look. And there it is, all grimed up with the dome on it. Anyway, thank you for stopping by. Those were my latest 2 craft adventures. If you get a chance, check me out on Instagram. I post over there relatively regularly. Look for me to have 2 videos out a week here on YouTube. And my Patreon is up. And I have, if you join me on Patreon, I offer $3 or more. You get some kind of mail from me once a month. And yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by. And I will see you next time. Bye.